I am Lamont at Large. Today, I am at 5725 Crawfordville Road here in Speedway, Indiana. I'm here to talk about a robbery that occurred over 40 years ago at this very location, in which 4 people were brutally murdered. This building right here used to be a Burger Chef. Burger Chef is a chain of fast food restaurants based out of the Indiana area. And on the evening of Friday, November 17th, 1978, 4 Burger Chef employees were working here. 20-year-old Jane Freet, the assistant manager, 16-year-old Daniel Davis, 16-year-old Marcus Flemings, and 18-year-old Ruth Ellen Shelton. They were closing up for the night. The next day, the morning manager comes in and notices that the crew's jackets and purses are still there. He goes to the safe to count the receipts from the night previous and notices that the money in the safe is missing. He goes to the register and looks at the receipt, and the total sales receipts for that night was about $581. So you're guessing that's about how much money is missing in the safe. Now, they call the police. The police come here. They're looking around at the crime scene, and they say to themselves, oh, these kids, they just stole the money and went to go party. Stole the money and went to go party, have a good old time. Why would they do that? Well, who knows? They're only kids, right? They're only kids. Kids do stupid things like that, like steal money and goof off and lose their job or what have you, risk going to jail. So when the morning crew arrives, the manager instructs them to clean up the restaurant and get it ready for the day's business. They clean up the restaurant and they open up, and detectives have an APB out on these 4 kids. They think they're going around joyriding. Well, Jane Freet's car is discovered in the city, abandoned, unlocked. So then they start to get a little bit nervous that maybe something took place. So they let the sheriff's department know and other local law enforcement jurisdictions in the area to be on the lookout for these 4 kids. The following Sunday, in a rural part of Johnson County, about 20 miles away from here, they discovered them all brutally murdered. Daniel and Ruth were shot in the back of the head, execution style. The assistant manager, Jane Freet, she was stabbed twice in the chest. During her autopsy, the blade was discovered in her chest, but yet the handle was missing. And Marcus Flemings appeared that he had been bludgeoned to death with a chain and choked on his own blood and died. There was no weapons recovered, nothing, no evidence to gather here because the inept detectives let the workers here clean up the crime scene. Now, after interviewing some people, a couple of kids had noticed that there was some 2, what they would call shifty-looking guys in their early 30s, both white, hanging out in the car in this parking lot. One of them had a beard, pretty good-sized beard. The other one was clean-shaven, both in their early 30s, fair-haired. So a couple years goes by, they don't have any leads to any of the story or anything like that. And then supposedly somebody had called the police stating that somebody was bragging in a bar that they were responsible for the Burger Chef murders. The detectives go talk to the individual. They take him down to the station. He passes the polygraph test. And he says, hey, listen, I was just bragging. I didn't do it. But I got a couple of associates that I suspect personally that they did it. You might want to go talk to them. He drops a couple names. They go investigate the people that he says. By the time they were found, one of the names that he dropped, the individual, he was already in prison for robbing a fast food joint. They go to the prison to interview him. He denies everything. He said he didn't do it. He doesn't know what they're talking about. The other guy, and there was a few guys that were robbing fast food places in this area then, had a very bushy beard, a long beard. They contact this guy, and instead of them grabbing him and taking them to the station to where the witnesses that seen these characters can pick them up out of a lineup, it says that they sent him a summons. This guy shows up to the lineup clean shaven. And this was a guy who had his beard. A lot of his friends in the neighborhood said he had this beard for at least 5 years. He's clean shaven. He's not picked out. They deny all involvement. A few years later, the one guy that gets out of prison, he takes his own life. The other guy dies of a heart attack. Now, the theory goes that a couple years after the murder, Miss Freet's brother, James, who had a drug problem, was arrested for cocaine distribution. The detectives were trying to link him to this murder somehow. He was questioned on and off for about a week, and finally he was cleared of all charges. Now, the story doesn't end there. In 1984, a man by the name of Donald Forrester was serving time at an Indiana prison for rape. He was doing 95 years. And according to online articles and statements, he was set to be transferred to Indiana State Prison, a very hardened prison, a prison that he did not want to go to. Donald Forrester contacts a detective that works for the Marion County Sheriff's Office, Detective Mel Wilsey, and says, hey, listen, I want to confess to a murder, but in exchange, I don't want to be sent to this Indiana State Prison. I want to stay where I'm currently at. They pick him up, take him to the Sheriff's Department, and he says, yeah, me and 3 of my associates, which I believe he did not name, but he said they had came here that night to collect a drug debt that was due from James, which is James' brother. They didn't have the money. They decided to kidnap them. One of them roughed up Marcus. He fell, hit his head on the bumper of their car. They kidnapped all of them, took them out to the woods. And Donald Forrester claims that he shot Ruth and Daniel in the back of the head. They take him to the crime scene. He's showing them where he put the bodies, where he did. Everything's kind of adding up. The other guys, he said, killed Marcus with some kind of object, and then stabbed Jane in the chest. He says that he threw the gun in the river. The detectives went to go look for the gun. They couldn't find it. And he told them that when he came back to the scene, he had picked up the shell casings and had flushed it down the toilet of the house where he lived at. The detectives go to interview Donald's ex-wife, and she confirms the story of them driving out to that wooded area and him looking for some kind of shell casings for some odd reason. They get a search warrant for the house, which they no longer live in. The wife doesn't live in there anymore. It's new owners. They get a search warrant. They go through the septic tank of the house and they find the shell casings. So this guy looks like could be possibly involved in this murder. However, because of the story leaking out through somebody in the sheriff's department, he reneges on his confession and says that the sheriff's department coerced him. They don't have any evidence to even bring up charges against him. It's not going to stick. He eventually dies in prison of cancer in 2006. A very brutal story that just has nothing but police failure all the way through it. I mean, I don't believe I've ever read about a quadruple murder, or even a double or a triple murder with this much inept detectives involved to process the crime scene, and to not process the crime scene and to allow them to clean it up. I mean, beyond sloppy detective work. I mean, this case was ultimately, it was able to solve, but too many dumb cops that just didn't care about their job, just did not care about solving this crime. The police, of course, they feel they know who murdered the 4 kids here on that night, but they don't have any evidence because they screwed it up. Amazing. Not to sound angry, but when I read that, I was flabbergasted. Absolutely flabbergasted. This is still an unsolved murder, of course, even though the police feel that they know who did it. If anybody has any information that they could add to help solve this murder, please give the Indiana State Police Department a call, 317-232-8248. I am Lamont at Large, coming to you from Speedway, Indiana. Rest in peace to all the victims involved in this senseless murders. Thank you for watching. Peace out.